Good afternoon, Honourable Premier, Honourable Ministers, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. As Her Majesty the Queen's representative, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Government House for this very special ceremony. I'd like to take a moment to just acknowledge that we are gathered today on Treaty 6 land. I'd also like to take this opportunity to a very big welcome to our newest member of Executive Council. I have a great deal of admiration for the work performed by all elected officials. It's a challenging job to take on at any level, and it's particularly demanding when you're asked to represent your constituents and also serve as the Minister of the Crown. Maybe a tough job, but nothing is more important to the basic principles of freedom and democracy and good government that shape our Canadian way of life. So, to our newest Cabinet Minister and to those taking on new ministerial duties, I have every confidence that you will give your very best to the work that lies ahead. Few people have the opportunity to serve and to affect positive change in the way that you are about to experience. I know that you face a mountain of information to be digested and important decisions to be made as part of your cabinet duties. I also know that you're going to be putting in some very long hours, but I will say that in my opinion, it's one of the very best jobs you could have in Alberta. The work you do as ministers will become a part of the fabric and the history of our remarkable province. And I know that you'll make the very most of every moment. So, to Premier Notley and all Cabinet Ministers, thank you for your ongoing service to our province. Finally, to the friends and family and colleagues here today, thank you for the important support that you offer these dedicated men and women. This is a great team, and I wish you continued success in the future. Congratulations, and I want you to enjoy this special day. I have a letter from the Premier recommending members of the Executive Council with new roles and a new member of the Executive Council. I have accepted her recommendations. Premier, will you please now introduce to our guests the new member of Executive Council?
Thank you, Your Honour. Before introducing our newest member, the member for the Legislative Assembly for Leduc-Beaumont, I would like to take a moment as well to acknowledge that today's ceremony takes place on Treaty 6 lands. And I would now ask Mr. Shay Anderson, member of the Legislative Assembly, to step forward to swear the oath of Executive Council.
I will now administer the oath of Executive Council. Please repeat, I do solemnly affirm at the close of the oath. You, Shane Quinn Anderson, do solemnly promise and swear that you will serve Her Majesty truly and faithfully in the place of her council in this Her Majesty's province of Alberta. You will keep close and secret all such matters as such be treated, debated, and resolved in Executive Council without publishing or disclosing the same or any part thereof by word, writing, or any otherwise to any person out of the same council, but to such only as be of the council. And yet, if any manner so propounded, treated, and debated in any such Executive Council shall touch any particular person sworn of the same council upon any such matter as shall in any wise concern his loyalty and fidelity to the Queen's Majesty, you will in no wise open the same to him, but keep it secret, as you would from any person, until the Queen's Majesty pleasure be known in that behalf. You will in all things be moved, treated, and debated in any such Executive Council faithfully honestly and truly declare your mind and opinion to the honor and benefit of the Queen's Majesty and the good of her subjects without partiality or exception of persons, in no wise forbearing so to do from any manner of respect, favor, love, meed, displeasure, or dread of any person or persons whatsoever. In general, you will be vigilant, diligent, and circumspect in all your doings touching the Queen's Majesty affairs, all which matters and things you will faithfully observe and keep, as a good counsellor ought to do, to the utmost of your power, will, and discretion. I do solemnly affirm.
I do solemnly affirm.
Mr. Anderson will now subscribe to the oath by signing the Executive Council Roll Book.
Your Honor, I would now ask the Honourable Danielle Larrabee, Minister of Children's Services, to please step forward to take the oath of office.
I would ask you to take the oath of office and subscribe to the same in the Executive Council Roll Book.
I, Danielle Marie Larrabee, do solemnly and sincerely promise and swear that I will duly and faithfully and to the best of my skill and knowledge execute the powers and trusts reposed in me as Minister of Children's Services for the province of Alberta. So help me God.
And just so you all know, this is only read once. It sounds like Shakespeare, so it's only going to have to be read once. Okay. Elizabeth II, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom, Canada, and her other realms and territories, Queen, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith, to all to whom these presents shall come, greeting. Know ye that having confidence in the loyalty, integrity, and ability of the Honourable Danielle Marie Larrabee of Slave Lake in the province of Alberta, I, under and by virtue of the power in me vested in that behalf, do appoint her, the said Honourable Danielle Marie Larrabee, to be Minister of Children's Services for the province of Alberta, to have and to hold with all and every the powers, privileges, authority, and advantages to the said office of Minister of Children's Services, by right and by law appertaining, in testimony that whereof I have caused these letters to be made patent, and the great seal of the province of Alberta to be hereunto affixed. Witness, the Honourable Lois Mitchell, Lieutenant Governor of the province of Alberta and our city of Edmonton in our province this 19th day of January 2017 and in the 65th year of Her Majesty's reign, by command. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was going to do the shake.
Your Honor, I would now ask the Honourable Irfan Sabir, Minister for Community and Social Services, please step forward to take the oath of office.
I would ask you to take the oath of office and subscribe to the same in the Executive Council roll book.
Thank you. I, Irfan Sabir, do solemnly and sincerely promise and affirm that I will duly and faithfully, and to the best of my skills and knowledge, execute the powers and trusts reposed in me as Minister of Community and Social Services for the province of Alberta.
Your Honor, I would now ask the Honourable Shay Anderson, Minister of Municipal Affairs, to please step forward to take the oath of office.
I would ask you to take the oath of office and subscribe to the same in the Executive Council roll book.
I, Shay Quinn Anderson, do solemnly and sincerely promise and affirm that I will duly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust proposed to me as Minister of Municipal Affairs for the province of Alberta.
Please all rise for the departure of the Vice-Regal Party. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. I would ask you to all to be seated and just give us a moment to reset as we prepare for the media availability. Thank you.
All right. So thank you all for coming. As you may have noticed, today I am changing our cabinet. And in particular, I'm doing that so that our government can place an increased focus on protecting children. All children deserve a safe, healthy home. When a child's home isn't safe, we have a responsibility to step in and do whatever it takes to make sure kids are protected. Nobody takes this responsibility lightly. It is one of the most critical services government provides, and it is a service where there is no room for errors. But the fact of the matter is over many years, there have been errors, years and years worth. Alberta's child intervention system is operated by some of our province's biggest, hearted people. And it's become clear, though, that there have been structural issues that have prevented our dedicated child intervention workers and staff from properly doing what they're trained to do. And these structural problems need to be fixed. So we are increasing our efforts to make sure the broken parts of the system get fixed and that all children are protected, cared for, and supported. The Ministry of Human Services will be divided into two ministries. To better protect children, we are creating the Ministry of Children's Services. This new ministry, as you know, will be led by Danielle Larrivee, who will move from her current role as Minister of Municipal Affairs. Minister Irfan Sabir will assume a new role as Minister of Community and Social Services. And we are making this change so that we can provide a greater focus on and accountability for protecting children. Instead of a minister and a deputy working on protecting children, in addition to a host of other extremely important concerns, like work on income security and improving the lives of Albertans with disabilities, we will now have a minister and deputy with a sole focus on protecting kids. The new Minister of Children's Services and her deputy will work with existing child intervention groups, child care groups, and Indigenous and non-Indigenous community groups. She will be responsible and accountable for the important duties of helping ensure better child services and child protection. Now, while the Ministry of Children's Services will be responsible for the Act and child protection policy and practice, the new ministry's child intervention staff will continue to be co-located with other frontline human services staff. We're keeping them located together so Albertans still have access to the integrated services that have been created over the last few years and that are needed to help support families and prevent kids from being at risk. We're also keeping staff together so that those who have been tasked with child protection and risk prevention can still work directly with their government colleagues in community and social services to help families better navigate the programs they need. The difference will be the focus and accountability of a dedicated minister. Minister Larrivee is no stranger to hard work and no stranger to fixing long-standing issues. In her role as the Minister of Municipal Affairs, she calmly and effectively led her department through changes to the Municipal Government Act, changes that should have been made years ago. In doing so, she was able to take incredibly complex issues surrounded by an array of impassioned competing interests, and have the frank and respectful conversations needed to get the job done. Throughout that process, she was open and honest with our municipal leaders. She listened and consulted, and when it came time to deliver, she stepped up and delivered. I'm asking her to use those same well-tested leadership qualities to help us provide better, safer care for our kids. She will immediately begin work on the dedicated child intervention panel announced yesterday by Irfan Sabir. This panel will examine long-standing issues that exist within the child intervention system and will bring forward solutions to systemic issues. In addition, she will develop a plan that will allow kids in care to have more stable, permanent homes where they can grow and learn and feel safe. Minister Sabir will continue to build on his successes as Minister of Human Services. During his tenure, 199,000 families became eligible for financial support through the Alberta Child Benefit Program and the Family Employment Tax Credit, which will help and support 380,000 children overall. He was also a driving force behind our government's efforts to improve access to quality, affordable childcare, including taking the first steps towards delivering on our government's commitment to $25 per day childcare. In addition, his work on improving services for persons with developmental disabilities was strong, and he will now be able to turn his attention to work that is underway to improve AISH, where our government can provide better, more timely, more accessible services for Albertans. And coming into Cabinet as the new Minister of Municipal Affairs, the MLA for Leduc-Beaumont, Shay Anderson. Shay has been an excellent advocate for his community, both inside the legislature and out. He is a people person through and through, and will become well known to our rural communities and municipal leaders in a very short time. Leaders of our municipalities will come to know very quickly what we in the legislature learned quickly about Shay. Behind that stunning beard is a person who knows the value of listening, a person who knows the value of honest, hard work, and a person who knows the tremendous value of bringing people together to solve problems. He's lived much of his life in smaller communities and knows there are immense opportunities in our rural areas to build a good life, which is exactly what he is working to do with his own young family. He is a proud Albertan, a dedicated husband and father, and I couldn't be more proud to have him in our cabinet as the new Minister of Municipal Affairs. His initial focus will be on getting out and meeting with our municipal leaders and on delivering on work that remains outstanding to improve the Municipal Government Act. And of course, he knows that work because he co-sponsored the Municipal Government Act that was introduced and passed last year. Minister Larrivee will be there to help Minister Anderson's transition. To help maintain consistency, she will maintain her role on the Municipal Governance Committee of the Cabinet, just as Minister Billis maintained his role on the committee after he moved from Municipal Affairs to Economic Development and Trade. Minister Anderson will now replace Minister Billis on that committee. And one other change to note, Minister Ceci, through his membership on that committee over the last many months, has worked, and who also worked on the Municipal Government Act and on city charters, will now take on the lead responsibility for our government's work on concluding the city charter conversations, working closely with both Mr. Larrivee and Mr. Anderson. So with that said, I want to congratulate my friends and my colleagues in their new roles. This is a cabinet that believes in the strength of our province and its people. It's a cabinet that believes our province can do so much more to care for our children, to care for our communities, and to care for one another. And with these changes to our cabinet, we will continue to move Alberta forward. So I'm happy to pass the mic over to, who's speaking next? You, or you, okay.
Thank you, Premier. And congratulations to Minister Larrivee and to Minister Honorable Anderson. We have accomplished so much, and there is much that remains to be accomplished. Providing disabled Albertans with better supports and doing more to enable them to live better, more inclusive lives. Combating poverty and ensuring supports are there to give a helping hand up for those who need a helping hand most. When I moved to Alberta, I was struck by the tremendous spirit of the people of this province, and it has been one of the greatest honor of my life to be an Albertan. This is a province of hardworking, caring people. My time as MLA and Cabinet Minister has allowed me to meet and work alongside the thousands and thousands of people from all across our province who dedicate their lives to caring for their fellow Albertans. I'm proud to know them and eager to continue to work hard with them. As Minister of Community and Social Services, I will continue to build on the good work we have accomplished together and will work with my colleague, Minister Larrivee, to ensure her transition to the new portfolio is seamless. Thank you, Premier, for this opportunity. And thank you to all my caucus and cabinet colleagues for their advice, support, and inspiration. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Premier for entrusting me with this tremendous responsibility, and it is a tremendous responsibility. I have 3 children myself, and my youngest is 7, and I've been thinking about the best way to tell her about what my new role is. So when I get home tonight, I will sit down with her and tell her that I'm now going to be in charge of making sure that kids across Alberta are protected. And as I play that through in my mind, I see her looking up at me with her innocent eyes and asking, but Mom, what do kids need to be protected from? And that's not an easy thing to talk to a 7-year-old about, though it's an incredibly important thing. As adults, we know exactly what kids need to be protected from. And that is why we need to do everything in our power to keep kids safe, especially our most vulnerable children. As for my 7-year-old, for now anyway, what I'll tell her is that not every kid is as lucky as she is. To have a warm home and a mom and dad who love her very much, and her brothers as well. And for kids who don't have that, they still deserve to be happy and to be safe and to feel like someone cares about them and about their future. My daughter will understand that in her own innocent way. I couldn't be more eager to get to work to fix the systemic problems we know are there in our child intervention system, and to work with dedicated folks from all over Alberta, including Indigenous leaders and families, to make a meaningful difference in the lives the youngest and most innocent Albertans live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier, and thank you, Minister Larrivee, for paving the way for me. It's an honor to be joining the Cabinet today as the new Minister of Municipal Affairs. Coming from one of the fastest growing regions in Alberta, I understand the pressure that municipalities face, and I'm looking forward to working with communities across the province to build a more collaborative, prosperous, and sustainable future for Alberta families. I know over the past few years, Albertans have seen a number of new faces in this role, and I want to assure them that I am committed to finishing what Minister Larrivee has started. As one of the co-sponsors to the Modernized Municipal Government Act, I'm deeply and keenly aware what's involved in this ministry, and I am truly humbled to take on a portfolio that impacts the lives of every single person in our province. So while I know I have a lot of work ahead of me and a lot of learning to do, I am ready to dive headfirst into this job and work with our municipal partners to continue moving forward. I'm humbled and deeply honored, and I really appreciate the trust that my cabinet members and my premier have put in me, and I'm looking forward to a lot of hard work ahead of me. Thank you very much.
We're now going to open up the floor for questions. If you have a question that you're hoping that a specific minister will answer, could you direct that question to the minister, please?
What role, if any, did the Serenity case have in today's decision?
Well, I think, we knew already as we were dealing with various issues with respect to the ministry that the ministry continued to be large and difficult to manage. I think certainly there's no question that the Serenity case highlighted that fact for us. So, there's no question that it played a role. But honestly, I think most people would acknowledge that there's over some time when the original Human Services Ministry was created, it was just too much in one place, too many significant, important issues that impact the lives, the daily lives of people in Alberta, all being pushed together. And these are issues that matter to our government, ensuring that we care for vulnerable Albertans and give them the tools to build a better future for themselves and for their kids. This is critical to the work that we do. And so we believe that it was overdue to separate them out and to ensure that the many issues which need to be addressed within those two ministries each get the attention that they deserve from two dedicated and focused ministers.
Premier, you mentioned systemic issues. Is that purely just the size of the ministry, or are there actual specific issues that you can identify for us today?
Well, I think, I think most people who deal, for instance, with child protection will acknowledge that there are a number of issues, some that are unique to the ministry and how it's organized, some that are unique that are related to multi-generational issues, that are related to issues of poverty. I mean, there are tremendous overlapping complex issues as they relate to something that sounds as simple as keeping children safe. So it's not that we want to spend a lot of time saying that this is the one magic solution that's going to fix the problem, because that's not true. That's why we've moved forward with the all-party committee that's reviewing child protection, because we actually believe we want to be able to walk away a little bit from the positional approach and the partisan approach that all members of the legislature have taken to this issue in the past. Try to get people in a room to do an honest and fair assessment of what the problems are. And then while we have in the past perhaps disagreed on what the solutions are, try to work together on finding solutions that we can all support, so that then as we move forward, no matter who's in government, we're all working on a plan that we all think is the best one to protect Albertans and to promote the future of Albertans. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we want to open it up so that people can engage in a conversation about it, including, for instance, the staff who've been doing all this wonderful frontline work for so many years, so that they can engage and be heard. And so there's going to be a lot of work done with and as a result of that committee. And so we just wanted to have a minister who was able to fully engage.
What happens with that panel? Is it still Minister Sabir's panel, or does it become Minister Larvae's?
It's Minister Larvae's panel.
Will Minister Sabir have anything to do with it anymore?
I mean, I'm sure that they will consult, because in fact a lot of the services that impact, you'll find when people start talking about the issues around child protection, you'll find that there are impacts from the work that is done within Minister Sabir's ministry, as well as Minister Hoffman's ministry, as well as Minister Egan's ministry, and as well as Minister Fian's. So they'll continue to work together, and obviously there'll obviously be an opportunity to share past work as well.
He's not a member of it, an ex-officio member. Could he be compelled to speak before it if the committee so chooses?
Well, the committee doesn't have the authority to compel witnesses. It's not that kind of committee. It's a committee that's focused on finding solutions, reviewing the problem, getting all the best evidence with respect to how to deal with the problem, and then working on finding solutions.
Some people would have expected Emily Jansen to be here today and expected her to join Kevin, especially with her standing on family and communities experience. Have you had conversations with her about joining cabinet, and why wasn't she part of this transition?
I've had conversations with a number of my members of caucus about being in cabinet, not being in cabinet. It's always a very difficult decision. There are now 55 members of the NDP caucus, and let me tell you, there are 55 very, very talented and effective members of the NDP caucus. So making that decision is always a difficult one. I know that MLA Jansen has already been making an excellent contribution to the work of our caucus, and she's been working very closely, particularly with our members in Calgary, to give her advice on how to grow our engagement and our outreach there. And I'm looking forward to working very closely with her and following her advice on that as the Premier, in order to be able to build more relationships down in Calgary. So that's a role that I'm very pleased that she's able to play for us.
Premier, at the time when the Serenity case came up in the House, you were defending your minister, saying he spent a year working on these things and has gotten up to speed on this very complicated file, and he's going to stick with the job. Now he's off the job. Can you explain sort of the contradiction?
I don't actually quite accept the premise there. When Minister Sabir has done tremendously good work on a number of issues that impact child protection. As you would know, under his leadership, it was one of the few areas that received a significant increase in funding in the budget, a $37 million increase to child protection services. He's also been working very hard on matters as it relates to AISH and income support and permanency. So he's been engaging in these things, but he's also been engaging on issues around PDD and on issues around childcare. And there's just a lot of really important issues in this ministry. And they're issues that matter to my government and quite frankly matter to me. And so I just want to make sure that we've got enough people on the job to be sure that we have something concrete to deliver on behalf of Albertans for Albertans in the years to come.
Premier, there was recently a cabinet shuffle in Ottawa about the economic challenges coming out of the new administration in the United States. Your government in the past has spoken about the Trans Mountain Pipeline or diversifying markets as a response to some of these economic pressures, but those won't take place for decades, years or decades. Mr. Trump takes office tomorrow. What is your government going to do in the short term to respond to what are some of the strongest protectionist pressures in the United States in decades?
Well, as you would know, in fact, Minister Larrivee first came into cabinet when I created the new Ministry of Economic Development and Trade and put Minister Billis in charge of that. And he has been working diligently on those issues with respect to increasing and diversifying our markets, but also in terms of focusing on work that we have to do to reposition for the new administration. So as I've said before, I mean, we have officials down in Washington now who are working very hard to get a sense of the lay of the land in terms of what's going on, and then we'll be quickly coming back to us with a strategy in terms of how best to engage. And I'm pleased that we already had Minister Billis in place doing that work, building relationships with our biggest trading partner, obviously, in the United States, working with state leaders, because there's actually a lot of benefit to be gained by state-to-state relationships. And then, of course, we also have Mr. Collier, because we know that two of the big files that are in front of us right now are the softwood lumber, as well as some agriculture files, and perhaps a revisiting of the cool stuff. And so Mr. Collier has also been fully briefed on that. And once the administration's in place, they will both be working very diligently, along with me, actually, to try and expand the opportunities to build relationships, understanding that Albertans need a government that will do everything they can to build trade opportunities and protect trade opportunities for Albertans.
The previous government has had trouble.
Pardon me?
This is your third Municipal Affairs Minister now, Mr. Anderson. What do you say to leaders like Mayors Nenshi and Iveson, who are maybe getting a little frustrated with having, a different face at the table over every, 6 months or so, it seems?
It's not actually 6 months. It has actually been 14 or 15 months since Minister Larrivee was first appointed to the position. And of course, she managed to complete about 85% of the most ambitious piece of municipal government legislation introduced in the province in the last 25 years. So that's what she's done. So it's not like she's sort of left halfway through. That big piece she got done. That being said, I would say two things. First of all, because Minister Anderson was co-sponsoring the Municipal Government's Amendment Act, he's fully apprised of the issues inherent in it, the issues that are outstanding, and he's actually done a great deal of engaging with municipal leaders already as a result of that role. When it comes to the two big cities and the charter discussions, those were always somewhat separate from the MGA discussions anyway. We have a cabinet committee, as I described in my opening remarks, that consists of 3 cabinet ministers that had been chaired by Minister Larrivee, but will now be chaired by Minister Ceci. I think obviously we can assume that the Mayor of Calgary is fairly comfortable with Minister Ceci and won't spend a lot of time trying to get to know him, as Minister Ceci sat on the Calgary City Council for 19 years, and in fact was a colleague of Mayor Iveson's for a period of time as well. I believe they had some overlap. So I actually think that by asking Minister Ceci to lead those particular discussions while working together with Minister Larrivee and Minister Anderson, that we've got people that know the file and know the players in order to make sure that we continue to make progress on it.
I have a question for Minister Larrivee, if possible.
Sure.
You were talking about the needs and how you're anxious to get to work. What's the top of your list when you look at that department and the challenges that you're facing?
Well, thanks for that great question. And it is to move forward quite promptly with the work of the panel to make sure we're all very clear on what the current challenges are and to start talking seriously about what solutions can be put in place to develop that plan. So Minister Sabir had put, certainly that panel into play, and they have some timelines in place around that were shared yesterday. And so I will be picking that ball up and running with it to make sure that we get action on that sooner rather than later. Besides the panel, looking forward to engaging myself also with the staff of the department. As a frontline nurse, I have always believed that frontline workers have something to offer in terms of understanding the problems and solutions. So I'll be working with them, working with Indigenous leaders and communities to get a better picture of what the issue is so that we can make sure the actions that we take are really going to make change. But again, no delay in that. Actions sooner rather than later are the goal.
The
panel isn't reporting, I think, between 8 and 10 weeks, so is there something that needs your immediate attention?
Certainly building the relationships with the staff in the department and with the people in the community, do that preliminary work to start, again, getting a picture of what the concerns are. Certainly through the mental health review, I've done some work with Del Graf. Through that, looking forward to working with him more. I quite enjoyed that experience with the mental health review, but also, as a public health nurse, I had some perspective on that as well. So again, diving deeper than I have on this before, and so that we can really be clear on what the best actions are going forward.
Premier, the previous government struggled to keep children safe in care. Your government came in, the Serenity case, I think, highlights that you struggled. And now here we are today, we're going to try this. What can we tell Albertans? Two things. Can you why is it so hard for governments to keep kids safe in care? And given that they've, quite frankly, heard a lot of this before, what can you tell them now that you can frankly believe that there actually is going to be positive change?
Well, I think, as I've said before, I mean, it is as soon as you start digging into it, you realize that the issues are much more complicated than you think at the outset. I mean, oftentimes, not always, but children who are at risk because they and their families are struggling with multi-generational challenges. They're not fixed overnight. It's, I've had some of the most dedicated social workers on the planet say to me, this is not a question of just writing a check. It won't get fixed. Writing a check isn't going to fix the problem. It will fix some of the problems, but it won't fix all of the problems. It's a question of ensuring how we get the services to where they need to be, ensuring that we have a respectful relationship with our Indigenous leaders and Indigenous communities, ensuring that we're providing an adequate level of health and supports above and beyond simply income supports, working with families to give them the tools to keep their kids safe rather than taking them away, but trying to understand, but making sure our staff are given the resources, like those wonderful frontline staff are given the resources to make those calls in a way that is effective, because you can be the most dedicated frontline worker and sometimes make a call that doesn't work out the right way. So you can't eliminate all risk. You can't, but we can do better. And so the Serenity case, for instance, highlighted a lot of issues just in terms of the investigation process, for instance. And so, of course, that's where the committee will start. But I think there's more, and I think that what we need to be able to do is move it from being a ministry where everybody is under attack at all times, and so information, instead of being shared, is kept close, and that stops people from making really hard, concrete recommendations for change. And so we have to create an environment where it's okay to have these hard conversations, because that way maybe we can start making some really clear decisions to change.
In the Serenity case, there were some gross systemic errors in that, right? I mean, autopsy not that years. Your own department not getting things to the police and that sort of thing. Presumably, you'd like to solve the bigger things, but
and that's why that's
we could go, if we start going way back to this and that, I mean, I think Albertans, do not agree. Let's fix that. Let's get the autopsy done.
And that piece is the piece that we're hoping to be able to come up with a fairly concrete plan about in order to take the appropriate legislative action. I'm hopeful by the spring. I hope that once we get into it, it won't end up being so complicated that it takes longer, but I'm hoping that we can actually make some pretty concrete recommendations on that and make the changes that need to be made by the spring. That whole process of who's responsible for which, how we share information, who has the authority to direct information from one person to the next, all that kind of stuff is more clearly aligned and then legislatively supported, so that piece at least can go forward. But again, I don't want us to get lost in the how do we investigate deaths thing, such that we forget that our real job is to prevent them.
I'm going to go to the phone lines now. Operator, please put through the first caller.
Your first question comes from the line of Don Braid of the Calgary Herald. Your line is open.
Premier, you've created a new ministry, but you haven't changed, it seems, in fact, intentionally, it seems, because you want to make sure that services are not interrupted. You've really done no structural changes within the bureaucracy itself. So it's now you have a face for the cause. I just wonder how you can make it work without significant cultural and perhaps organizational changes within the bureaucracy itself that deals with children.
Well, I think that, first of all, we shouldn't necessarily prejudge the work of the panel that we've put in place. We know that there are a number of recommendations that have been made about how the work of the ministry is done by a number of professionals, independent bodies, and MLAs over the course of the last many years. And so one of the things the panel is going to do is consolidate that and then look at whether there's whether there are initiatives that can be put in place to honor those recommendations. But what we're doing is putting more eyes on the problem, so that on one side, Minister Sabir will continue to work on matters related to, as I've said, AISH, income support, homelessness, PDD, children with disabilities, all of which are big pieces. And on the other side, Minister Larrabee will be able to focus her effort, and the people who work for her will be able to focus their effort, as they always have, on the issue of child protection. And the improvements that were made as a result of the creation of human services, because it wasn't all bad. There was some reason for doing it in the first place. And one of the improvements was this notion of providing more integrated service delivery at the front line. And so we'll be putting in place service agreements between those two ministries with respect to the folks in the front line and in the regional offices, so that the child protection worker has clear lines of authority when it comes to providing income support and doing the enhancement, the family enhancement side of the work that they need to do under their legislative authority. So, you know what, we didn't come in here with a recipe for redesigning the ministry just because. What we're trying to do is put more resources onto the challenge, to put more eyes on it, to enhance accountability, and then to work collectively with members across the aisle on recommendations that we can all support to improve the outcomes for all vulnerable Albertans, quite frankly.
Do you have a follow-up?
I just follow by asking, the Serenity case, it seemed to almost any person observed it closely, was a very difficult time for your government. I mean, the things you're talking about here are things that are absolutely core to the beliefs of the NDP when it comes to protection of children and so forth. Could you give us your assessment of how the Serenity case, and when things came out about no autopsy report for 2 years and all the other things that came out in that period, how that affected you, and how great an impact, I know you were asked this before in a way, but how great an impact has it had on your decision to move and doing what you're doing today?
Well, there's no question that what, you know, I think, well, there were a lot of different issues that were revealed through the tragedy of the Serenity case. The original set of recommendations that were included in the Child Advocates report focused more on the things that could have been done to improve the preventative elements of that tragic case, and those are important recommendations. And that highlighted for me something that both me and the minister himself had already started to see, which was a lot of recommendations being made, but we weren't moving as quickly as we could have on putting them into place. Then, of course, as we then discovered, as more information came out, there was the whole issue of how the matter was handled after the tragedy. And so that highlighted a number of issues that weren't fixed the last time the whole death review process had been considered. And that's, as I said, the thing that I think, I think there may be some reasonably concrete solutions that we can put in place relatively quickly, but of course we want to take it to the all-party panel and see what their recommendations are on it as well. So what it made me realize is that we needed to make that a priority, because you're quite right, it is a matter that is close to my heart, and it's something that matters to very much to the members of our government, and that's why we are doing everything we can to put more resources into trying to make a success of this, because it's not a question of simply expressing sympathy and then moving on to some other issue. We need to really roll up our sleeves and see if we can bring about improvement. And to do it while supporting, just to be clear, while supporting those people who provide that important service and who support those families each and every day, because those folks are doing work that we should thank them for each and every day.
Take Brianna's question, and then we'll wrap up.
Mr. Anderson, I wanted to ask you, the FCF is in Ottawa today. Mayor Edison's lobbying for a 90-10 split in funding. Do you see at all this coming up with at least 50 or 40% in the province?
Well, thanks for the first question as a new minister. You know, I think one of the things for me that I need to do is dive right in with my staff and get briefed. I mean, I've only been a minister for, what has it been, maybe half an hour now? So I'd like to get briefed on all this a lot more thoroughly before trying to give you a good answer on that, but it's definitely something, you know, that we're aware of. And Mayor Ivison and I have a good relationship. So, you know, I'm looking forward to working with him and Mayor Nenshi and all the other mayors going forward. So, yeah, so I'll always admit if I don't know something, and I'll tell you that, but right now I'm just looking forward to learning more and getting briefed on all these. So.
Can you talk more about that on a personal level? First time in government and, you know, first time as a minister, what today means to you?
To be honest, I'm humbled. It's an honor. You know, every time I walk in the legislature and every time I'm walking towards it, I look up and I can't believe that, you know, that's where I work. It's something that makes me feel proud every day to represent my constituents, to work hard for them, and now to represent Albertans. It's a huge deal. I have big shoes to fill. Minister Larrivee is an amazing minister and MLA, but I'm really looking forward to the challenge. Normally, you know, I just put my head down and work. You know, so it's not something that I was you know, expecting, I guess, in a way. Because I do that. I just put my head down, I work with people, and I enjoy that. I love being out in the rural areas. It's something that I like to do. I like talking with people, understanding what their issues are, so I'm really looking forward to it and diving right into it, for sure.
Thanks, everyone.